The shrill echo of laughter bounced off the cold tile walls of the girls' bathroom at Jefferson High. Cutting to the muffled hum of the afternoon bell, 3 girls stood in front of the mirror, adjusting their makeup, whispering, smirking, and then they turned. In the far corner, a quiet black girl named Ariana Lewis clutched her backpack to her chest. Her uniform shirt was slightly untucked, her curly hair pulled into a tight bun. She wasn't supposed to be there, not during break, not when she knew they would be. But she needed a moment, just one, away from the noise of a world that constantly reminded her she didn't belong. "Hey!" one of them said, her tone sharp and mocking. Didn't know rats were allowed in the Queen's bathroom. The others laughed, a cruel, rehearsed kind of laughter that filled the air like smoke. Ariana froze. Her eyes darted toward the door, but one of them, a tall blonde named Tessa, moved to block it. 3 seconds. That's all it took. 3 seconds between their sneers, and what would change everything. Because what they didn't know, what no one at Jefferson High knew, was that Ariana Lewis wasn't the fragile, helpless girl they thought she was. In those 3 seconds, the fear in her eyes hardened into something else, something dangerous, powerful, and unforgettable. When the bathroom door finally opened again, the laughter had stopped, and by the end of that day, Jefferson High would never forget her name. Ariana Lewis was the kind of girl teachers praised but classmates ignored. She got straight A's, never talked back, and always sat near the window, half present, half lost somewhere else. Her mother, Monique, worked 2 jobs, one at the local diner and another cleaning offices at night. Her father had passed away when she was 7, leaving behind a collection of jazz records and a lesson that Ariana never forgot. They'll test you because of your color, baby, but you never let them see you break. At home, she was safe. The tiny apartment smelled of vanilla candles and old books. Her mother's laughter was soft, like the background hum of life itself. But at school, Jefferson High, things were different. It was the kind of place that pretended to be diverse, but the cracks showed in subtle ways. The way teachers looked surprised when she aced a test, the way classmates hesitated before asking to borrow her notes, the whispers that traveled behind her back like shadows. And then there were the bullies. Tessa, the self-appointed queen bee, came from money, the kind of family that sponsored fundraisers and inclusive assemblies but sneered at the very idea of real equality. Her sidekicks, Lauren and Casey, followed her like echoes. Together, they made life at Jefferson unbearable for anyone who didn't fit their version of perfection. Ariana tried to stay invisible. She ate lunch alone, buried in her notebook, sketching things no one ever saw. Sometimes, she drew faces of people who looked like her. People strong, proud, unbothered. Other times, she drew storms. Her teachers thought she was shy. Her classmates thought she was weird. But deep inside, Ariana was something else entirely. A quiet storm waiting for the right moment to break. That moment came one Friday afternoon in October. A rumor had started. Something stupid, baseless, whispered by Tessa's circle that Ariana had a crush on one of their boyfriends. It was a lie, of course, but in high school, lies travel faster than truth ever could. By the time the lunch bell rang, the whispers had turned into laughter. Ariana thinks she's one of us, someone sneered in the hallway. She tried to ignore it, tried to push through the day, but by the time she ducked into the bathroom for a moment of peace, her hand shaking, her throat tight, they followed. And in those next 3 seconds, everything she'd been holding back would come crashing out. The confrontation started small, like a match being struck. Tessa stepped forward, her perfume clinging to the air like poison. "You think you could just come to our school, act all smart and quiet, and people won't notice you?" she said, circling Ariana like a predator. "You're just a charity case. Everyone knows it." Ariana didn't respond. She had learned silence was a shield, that if she didn't react, they'd get bored and move on. But that day was different. The week had been long, the looks sharper, the laughter louder. Lauren shoved her shoulder lightly. Not enough to leave a mark, but enough to make a point. "Say something, Mouse." Ariana looked up, her eyes locking on theirs for the first time. There was no fear, just a strange calm. It threw them off. "You think you're better than us?" Tessa snapped. The words hung in the air, charged and ugly. Ariana's mind flashed back to the night before, her mother sitting at the kitchen table, exhausted but smiling, reminding her, "Baby, some people will only see your skin, but you've got more power in your silence than they've got in all their noise." But this wasn't about silence anymore. When Tessa snatched Ariana's backpack and dumped it on the floor, scattering papers everywhere, that was the breaking point. Among the papers was a sketchbook, pages fluttering open to reveal detailed charcoal portraits. Not of celebrities, but of them. Tessa, Lauren, and Casey, drawn like caricatures of cruelty, every smirk and shadow captured perfectly. Lauren's face twisted. "What the hell is this?" Ariana stood up straighter. Her voice was calm when she finally spoke. "That's who you are." It wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. But it was enough to slice through the room like glass. For a second, they didn't move. Then Tessa's eyes flared. "You think you can mock us?" she screamed. She lunged forward, shoving Ariana into the wall. The noise echoed. Someone gasped. But before anyone could react, Ariana did something none of them expected. She reached into her pocket, not for a weapon, but for her phone, and hit record. The camera captured everything. The insults, the shoves, the laughter, the moment Tessa called her something she'd never forget, a word so vile it stopped time. Ariana didn't cry. She didn't shout. She just stared straight into the camera and said softly, "Keep going." 3 seconds later, the bathroom door swung open. Standing there was Ms. Parker, the school's guidance counselor, drawn by the commotion. The bullies froze. Tessa's face drained a color. Ms. Parker's voice was sharp, commanding. "What's going on here?" No one answered. But Ariana didn't need to. She just handed Ms. Parker her phone, still recording. That night, the video spread across the school like wildfire. By morning, Jefferson High was in chaos. The clip, barely 2 minutes long, showed everything. Tessa's taunts, the shove, the slur. It was undeniable. There was no editing, no context to twist, just raw truth. Students who had once ignored Ariana now looked at her differently, some with guilt, some with admiration. Teachers whispered in the hallways. The principal called an emergency assembly. Tessa and her friends tried to control the narrative, claiming it was taken out of context, that Ariana had provoked them. But the truth had a way of speaking louder than their excuses. When Ariana walked into school that Monday, she wasn't invisible anymore. Every step she took felt heavier, every stare more intense. But there was also something new in the air, respect. Still, the attention came with a cost. Online comments poured in. Some called her brave. Others, cruel strangers hiding behind screens, accused her of playing the race card. It hurt, but Ariana remembered her father's voice, the same calm tone from years ago. "They'll try to rewrite your pain, baby. Don't let them." The school board suspended Tessa and her friends indefinitely. For the first time, Jefferson High was forced to confront the racism it had long ignored. An investigation began. Anti-bullying programs were launched. But for Ariana, the real victory wasn't in punishment. It was in the shift she saw in people's eyes. In Ms. Parker's office one afternoon, Ariana sat quietly as the counselor said, "You changed something here, Ariana. People are finally seeing what they didn't want to see." Ariana didn't smile. She just nodded, because she hadn't done it to be seen. She'd done it to be heard. Months passed. The leaves turned from green to gold, and the hallways of Jefferson High felt different. Not perfect, not healed, but aware. Ariana still sat by the window in class, sketching quietly, but now her art was displayed on the bulletin board under the title Faces of Strength. Students who once ignored her now asked for her help with projects. Teachers began including conversations about racism, bias, and respect in their lessons. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. Some people still whispered. Some still avoided her. But Ariana had stopped needing their approval because she had found something far greater, her voice. The video eventually reached local news outlets. It sparked conversations about racial bullying in schools across the district. Parents demanded change. Policies were rewritten. And somewhere in a small apartment filled with jazz music and the smell of vanilla candles, Monique Lewis watched her daughter being interviewed on TV, proud tears shining in her eyes. When the reporter asked Ariana what she wanted others to learn from her story, she said, simply, "I didn't fight back with fists. I fought back with truth. And sometimes that's the loudest thing you can do." Her words echoed beyond that moment. In the years that followed, Ariana would go on to create a scholarship fund for students facing discrimination. She'd return to Jefferson High as a guest speaker, standing on the same stage where she once felt invisible. And every time she looked at the photo of herself, the quiet girl who turned the tables in a bathroom one October afternoon, she smiled, not because she won, but because she refused to lose. Her story wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming power, the kind that can't be stolen, silenced, or erased. And in that truth, Ariana Lewis found her peace.